Have you ever heard the saying, practice makes perfect? Well, while this is true, practice can also make blooming terrible. In this episode, we chat about how to practice things we do with our dog for success, and how to avoid failure to make learning easy and more fun. Hi, I'm Freya Locke, dog parent of Twyla the Springador, owner of my on-the-ground business Locke's Dogs, behaviourist and trainer, and the creator of the online Fun Not Fear school, club and podcast. We know there's nothing in life that can be taught with fear that can't be taught with fun apart from fear itself, and so it's our mission to teach you how to have a great life with your dog with none of the aversive equipment and icky methods of the past. Why listen to me? Well, when it comes to dogs who have behaviour struggles, I've been there and got the t-shirt. Guiding my own dog through his many struggles, I realised behaviour is my passion in life. I got qualified and have now helped hundreds of dogs with anxiety-based struggles, both in person and over the internet. I also know that dog parents want clear, easy and jargon-free advice they can follow that actually works. We'll make it easy for you and your dog to have the fun, not fear life you need together and overcome any anxiety your dog might struggle with, without doing anything complicated or difficult, without doing anything scary, and by simply having fun with your dog, playing games and doing the things you both enjoy. One of the many things we have drummed into us as a child is the old saying, practice makes perfect. And while it can, practice can also be really detrimental if it's all going wrong. Keeping on blindly practicing just means you're going to get frustrated or bored or disheartened if you're not getting the results that you want. And your dog is going to feel those things too, along with confusion as to why you're making them do these things in the first place. So today we're going to have a chat about practice and how to practice things in a way that will actually help you and your dog to progress with the things you'd like to learn. What we practice, we get good at. When we learn things, neural pathways are actually created in our brains, and they help our brains operate more efficiently when performing those things in the future. The brain doesn't like to have to keep relearning things over and over and over again, and so it uses the neural pathways it's already created in order to do things more efficiently. At first, when you learn something new, the neural pathways are more like overgrown muddy tracks with lots of stones to trip over, there's branches in the way, the verges are a total mess. It's really difficult to walk down those pathways. But the more we practice or tread those neural pathways, the more smoother that path becomes. It becomes less full of trip hazards, it widens out slightly. Perhaps you get some lighting or a tarmac road begins to appear. The more we use that neural pathway, i.e. practice, the more efficient it becomes and the more effortlessly our brain chooses to use that pathway to get us to our desired result. It's a bit like when we first learn to drive. To begin with, we're all fingers and thumbs. We can't judge very well how to get into a parking space. We might be hesitant to exit a junction. But slowly, we're using the driving neural pathway a little bit more and we get better and braver, and we begin to think less and less about where we have to put our feet and if we're holding the steering wheel right. Our brain is making the pathways to help us with driving more successfully because we're practicing. Eventually, the pathway becomes more like a motorway, complete with service stations and lovely scenery, and we start driving almost on autopilot, and we're really well practiced by that point. When we're teaching things to our dogs, they need us to guide them through the overgrown muddy neural pathways in a way that they can slowly turn those tracks into motorways too. So if we allow our dogs to practice all the things we don't like, then those pathways of the things we don't like also become motorways, and this is when we run into problems. As when we want our dogs to learn something different, the brain automatically goes with what it thinks is easier, and so will naturally veer towards those established pathways. The more we stop the dog from doing unwanted behaviours, the more chance there is the behaviours will begin to develop better, more usable pathways, and the pathways of old will gradually break down and fade back into being muddy tracks again. So take a dog as you always pulled like a train. If we do short stints of loose lead walking and allow them to get exercise without being on the lead, maybe hire a field or play in the garden, rather than doing an hour of pulling, we will slowly get better at loose lead walking. Because the loose lead walking neural pathways are the ones that we're treading, rather than the pulling one. If we do 5 to 10 minutes of mat training in a cafe, instead of 45 minutes of allowing the dog to pull you over to everyone else's tables, that's the behaviour that they'll get better at. If every time we walk through the door we wait for calmness before we fuss our overexcited dog, our dog will slowly learn to calm faster. However, if we come in the door and flap about all the time, so will the dog. And that's what they will get good at instead. So it makes sense to only practice what we want. But in the meantime, how do we prevent the practice of the things we don't want? Well, we employ management. So we use leads, long lines, stair gates, frosted film on windows, muzzles, fences and gates outside. If we don't want our dog to practice and build motorways to the things we don't want them to do, then we just have to shut those pathways off until the pathways begin to break down. So on top of this, if we really want to add bits to our neural motorways to make them really usable, we need to start a process called proofing, which means to practice the new behaviours in really easy places first of all, where the neural roadworks will get off to a good start. And then we need to add in levels of excitement or distraction or change of situation or duration. If we throw our dogs in at the proverbial deep end, expecting them to do a perfect downstay in the park when lots of things are going on and we've only practiced it for 5 minutes by ourselves in the living room in silence, then it's simply not going to end well and the dog will end up on the neural motorways of old, doing whatever they did before. However, if you take the time to perfect it in the kitchen, and then with the radio on, and then maybe with food on the side, and then take it to the garden, and then have food and toys in the garden, and then the front garden, and more interesting places, and slowly build up to the exciting park, the neural pathway for a downstay will have evolved into a motorway, while the old and unwanted motorway is developing potholes and weeds and growing back over. So, what things do you need to practice with your dog in a more successful way? What neural pathways has your dog already learned? Which motorways need to grow over with management and which ones need roadworks with proofing, rewards and practice? If ever you want to learn more about having a fun not fear life with your dog, do come and check out our club and school at www.funnotfear.co.uk or our on-the-ground business, locksdogs.co.uk, where you can find out all about your dog's behaviour and how to have an amazing life with them. So now you can tell your friends and family you've learned a little bit about neuroscience and how the brain processes new information in such a way that it makes learning more effective and easier for you and your dog. Neuroscience is a really complicated thing to study, but it's absolutely fascinating, and if there's anything you need clarification on, please do get in touch. So, that's it for this episode of the Fun Not Fear Dog podcast. Hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we enjoyed putting it together for you. Don't forget, if you like what you heard and you want help for your dog, you can also check out our one-to-one services, or you can join our Fun Not Fear Club and get courses and resources and interactive lives with a qualified behaviourist and trainer for less than £2 a week at locksdogs.co.uk. And remember, there is nothing that can be taught with fear that can't be taught with fun apart from fear itself. See you next time.